Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, staring at the empty space where New Denver Colony used to be. The silence was worse than any scream. His hands gripped the metal railing so hard his knuckles turned white. "Sir, we're getting something," Amy Walsh said from her communication station. Her voice shook as she pressed buttons on her console. "It's weak, but it's there." Jake turned toward her. Amy was young, maybe 25, with short brown hair and tired eyes. She had been working the radio for 3 days straight, hoping to hear something from the colony, anything at all. "Put it through," Jake said. The speakers crackled with static. Then a woman's voice came through, faint and broken. "This is Helen Brooks, Colony Administrator. If anyone can hear this, we need help. The Coalition ships are everywhere. They're not taking prisoners. They're killing everyone. Men, women, children. They said we broke the rules by expanding past our borders. They said we need to learn our place." Jake closed his eyes. Helen Brooks was a good woman. She had 3 kids and a husband who worked in the mines. Jake had met them 2 years ago during a supply run. "The Zephyrians are leading the attack," Helen's voice continued. "Those bug-like creatures with their clicking sounds. They're enjoying this. I can see them through my window. They're burning the school. The children are still inside." Lisa Chun, the tactical officer, looked up from her station. "Sir, we could be there in 6 hours if we push the engines." Jake shook his head. "We have orders to stay in this sector. Coalition Command was very clear about that." "But sir, those are our people down there," Bobby Martinez said from the engineering station. He was a big man with calloused hands and a good heart. "We can't just sit here and listen to them die. Coalition protocol states that human vessels cannot enter restricted zones without permission," Jake said, but his voice sounded hollow. "We signed the treaty. We agreed to their rules." Helen's voice came through again, weaker now. "They're coming for the administration building. This will be my last transmission. Tell Earth what happened here. Tell them the Coalition doesn't see us as equals. They see us as animals that need to be controlled. 200,000 people lived here. Families, children who never hurt anyone." The transmission cut to static. Then nothing. Amy tried to reach the colony again, but only silence came back. She kept trying for an hour, calling out to empty space. Finally, she stopped and put her head in her hands. "They're all gone," she whispered. Jake walked to the main screen. It showed the sector where New Denver used to be. A few Coalition ships moved between the debris, cleaning up the evidence. The Zephyrian vessels looked like giant insects with metal wings. They moved slowly, like they had all the time in the world. 50 years, Jake said quietly. 50 years since first contact. 50 years of following their rules, trying to prove we deserve a place in their galactic community. Lisa looked up. "Sir?" 50 years of being told we're too violent, too unpredictable, that we need to be watched and controlled for the good of everyone. Jake's voice got harder. "And this is what it gets us. Our people slaughtered like animals because we built homes on the wrong piece of rock." Bobby stood up from his station. "Captain, what are your orders?" Jake stared at the Coalition ships on the screen. The Zephyrians were taking their time, making sure nothing was left of the human colony. They wanted to send a message. They wanted other human settlements to know what happened when they stepped out of line. "Send a message to Earth Command," Jake said. "Tell them what happened here. Tell them the Coalition's true feelings about humanity. What should we tell them about our response?" Amy asked. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about Helen Brooks and her children. He thought about the school burning with kids inside. He thought about 200,000 people who died because they wanted to build a better life. "Tell them we're done," Jake said finally. "Done with what, sir?" Lisa asked. "Done pretending we're anything less than what we are. Done begging for scraps from their table. Done being grateful for the privilege of existing in their galaxy, Jake turned to face his crew. These were good people. They had families back on Earth. They had followed orders and kept the peace for years. But he could see something different in their eyes now. Something that had been sleeping was starting to wake up. "The Coalition thinks we're dangerous," Jake said. "They think we're too violent, too aggressive. They're afraid of what humans might do if we ever stop trying to be civilized." He walked to Amy's station and looked at the communication logs. Hundreds of human colonies scattered across space, all living under Coalition rules. All trying to be good citizens of a community that would never accept them. "Maybe it's time we showed them they were right to be afraid," Jake said. The crew looked at each other. They all understood what their captain was saying. The old way was over. The days of following Coalition rules and hoping for acceptance were finished. Something new was beginning. "Sir," Bobby said slowly, "if we do this, there's no going back. The Coalition won't just exile us. They'll try to destroy us." Jake nodded. "They're already trying to destroy us. They're just doing it slowly, one colony at a time, making sure we never get strong enough to fight back." He looked at the screen. Again, the Coalition ships were leaving now, their work finished. New Denver was gone, erased from existence as if it had never been there. "Change course," Jake ordered. "Set a course for Earth." "Yes, sir," Lisa said. "What should I log as our reason for leaving patrol?" Jake smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of something that had been prey for too long and was remembering how to be a predator. "Log it as a change in mission parameters," he said. "We're going home to remind our people who we really are." The U's vengeance turned away from the empty space where New Denver used to be. Behind them, the Coalition ships disappeared into the darkness, confident they had delivered their message. They had no idea they had just woken something that had been sleeping for 50 years, something that remembered what it meant to hunt. 6 months after New Denver, Dr. Carl Rivers sat in his small office on Earth, staring at files he was never supposed to see. The Coalition research facility where he used to work had been abandoned in a hurry. In their panic to leave, they forgot to wipe their computers clean. What Carl found changed everything. He pressed a button on his desk and spoke into the intercom. "Send Commander Torres in here. Tell her to bring her team." A few minutes later, Rachel Torres walked into the office. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and scars on her hands from years of military training. Behind her came Sergeant Danny, Kim, and Lieutenant Paula Jefferson. They were part of Earth's new Black Operations Unit, the kind of soldiers who did the jobs nobody talked about. "What do you have for us, Doc?" Rachel asked. Carl turned his computer screen toward them. "The truth about why the Coalition really rejected us." The screen showed alien text with human translations below. Rachel read the first few lines, and her face went cold. "They weren't afraid we were too aggressive," Carl said. "They were afraid we were too good at killing." Danny leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Carl opened another file. "This is a psychological profile of humanity written by Coalition scientists. They studied our history, our wars, our hunting patterns. They found something that scared them." The file showed pictures of human hunters from ancient times. Men and women chasing animals across vast distances, never giving up, never stopping. Then it showed modern soldiers using the same tactics in different ways. "We're persistence hunters," Carl explained. "Most intelligent species in the galaxy evolved from prey animals. They run, hide, or fight when cornered. But humans, we chase. We follow. We never stop until our target is dead." Paula looked at the screen. "So what? Lots of animals hunt." "Not like us," Carl said. He opened another file. "Look at this. Coalition. Battle reports from their wars with other species. When they fight, both sides retreat when they take heavy losses. They negotiate. They make deals. They try to find peaceful solutions. He switched to human battle reports. But when humans fight, we don't stop, we adapt, we learn. We keep going until we win or we're all dead. The Coalition calls it Berserker Syndrome. They think we're insane. Rachel sat down slowly. They're afraid of us. Terrified, Carl confirmed. This report says humans are the only species they've found that can fight past the point of logic. Most aliens will surrender when they realize they can't win. Humans will fight anyway, just to hurt their enemies. Danny smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Good, let them be afraid. Carl opened more files. There's something else. They've been watching us for over 100 years, long before first contact. They knew exactly what we were when they made contact. The whole thing about us being too aggressive was a lie. What was the real reason? Paula asked. They wanted to control us before we figured out what we were, Carl said. They hoped 50 years of following their rules would make us soft, civilized. They wanted to break our hunting instincts. Rachel stood up and walked to the window. Outside, she could see Earth's new military training facilities. Human soldiers were learning new ways to fight, new ways to kill. The Coalition's plan had failed. New Denver wasn't about expansion rights, she said quietly. It was a test. Carl nodded. They wanted to see if we would fight back, if we would accept their authority even when they murdered our people. And Captain Morrison gave them their answer, Danny said. The whole galaxy is watching now, Carl continued. The Coalition sent reports to all their member species. They're warning them about humans. They're saying we're dangerous predators who need to be contained or destroyed. Paula laughed. They're finally telling the truth. Rachel turned back to the group. What else do we know about Coalition psychology? Carl opened a new file. They're pack animals, but not like us. They cooperate because they're afraid of being alone. They follow leaders because they need protection. They make alliances because they're too weak to survive by themselves. He showed them pictures of Coalition species. Bug-like Zephyrians, bird-like ethereals, and others. All of them had one thing in common. They're all prey, Rachel realized. Exactly. They built their civilization on the idea that intelligence means cooperation, that advanced species don't fight wars, that violence is primitive and stupid. Danny grinned. Then they met us. Humans are the first predator species they've encountered, Carl said. We cooperate because it makes us better hunters. We follow leaders because they help us kill our enemies. We make alliances because they give us advantages in battle. Rachel looked at her team. So what do we do with this information? Carl closed the files. We use it. The Coalition thinks they understand us now, but they don't. They think we're just violent animals. They don't realize we're intelligent, violent animals. What's the difference? Paula asked. Animals are predictable. Rachel said, understanding. They follow instincts. But humans learn. We adapt. We plan. And we remember, Danny added. Carl nodded. The Coalition destroyed New Denver because they thought it would make us submit. Instead, it taught us something important. What's that? Rachel asked. We don't have to pretend to be sheep anymore. Rachel walked back to the desk. Doctor, I need you to prepare a full briefing on Coalition psychology. Everything we know about how they think, how they fight, how they make decisions. What are you planning? Carl asked. We're going to give them exactly what they expect, Rachel said. They want to see human predators? We'll show them what real predators look like. She turned to her team. Danny, I want you to start recruiting. Find soldiers who remember what it's like to hunt. Paula, begin planning infiltration missions. The Coalition has research stations throughout human space. It's time we visited them. What about official government approval? Paula asked. Rachel smiled. Captain Morrison already gave us our orders. We're done playing by their rules. Over the next few weeks, Rachel's team grew. They found soldiers like Nick Stevens, a specialist in stealth operations. They recruited technical experts like Grace Murphy, who could hack alien computer systems. They gathered intelligence officers who understood how to make enemies afraid. The coalition had made a mistake. They thought 50 years of peace had made humans soft. They thought treaties and rules had tamed humanity's hunting instincts. We're about to learn the difference between sleeping predators and dead ones. In hidden facilities across Earth, humans began preparing for war. Not the kind of war the coalition expected, with big fleets and formal battles. This would be a different kind of conflict, the kind that predators always won. Carl Rivers watched the preparations from his office. The coalition files were still open on his computer. Reports about human psychology, warnings about human violence, recommendations for controlling the human threat. The aliens had studied humanity for decades. They knew exactly what humans were capable of, but they had forgotten one important thing about predators: they were always watching back. 2 years after New Denver, Admiral Kevin Walsh stood on the bridge of the U.S. Nightmare, watching a coalition cargo ship try to escape. The alien vessel was fast, but humans were patient. They had been following it for 3 days across empty space. How long until they run out of fuel? Kevin asked. Navigator Sam Hughes checked his instruments. 6 hours, sir. Maybe 7 if they dump their cargo. Kevin nodded. The coalition ship was carrying medical supplies to one of their colony worlds. Important supplies that sick aliens needed to live. In the old days, humans would have let them go. Civilians were off limits. Medical supplies were sacred. Those days were over. Weapons Officer Ross, prepare the fear protocol, Kevin ordered. Diana Ross smiled as she pressed buttons on her console. The fear protocol was something new, something the coalition had never seen before. It wasn't designed to destroy enemy ships. It was designed to break enemy minds. Protocol ready, sir, Deanna said. Execute. The Nightmare's communication array sent a signal to the coalition ship. Not a message asking for surrender, not a demand for cargo. Just a sound, the sound of human children screaming. It was a recording from New Denver, taken during the massacre. The coalition crew would recognize it immediately. They would know what it meant. On the coalition ship's bridge, the alien captain received the transmission. He was a Zephyrian, one of the bug-like creatures that had led the attack on New Denver. His name was Clickthik, and he had been there when the human children died. Now those same screams echoed through his ship's speakers. Clickthik's crew panicked. They had heard stories about human revenge missions, ships that disappeared in the night, crews found dead with their eyes removed, messages carved into metal walls that said things like, "Remember New Denver. They're jamming our communications." His tactical officer reported, "We can't call for help. Run the engines at maximum," Clickthik ordered. "We have to reach the fleet." But humans didn't hunt like other species. They didn't chase their prey in straight lines. The Nightmare had friends waiting along every possible escape route. Captain Ryan Foster commanded the U.S. Stalker, positioned near the gas giant where the coalition ship might try to hide. His crew included communications specialist Tony Garcia, who had spent months learning how to speak Zephyrian. When the coalition ship tried to circle around the planet, Tony sent them another message. This time it was in their own language. "We know where your families live," the message said. "We know where your children sleep. We are coming for them next." The coalition ship changed course again, heading for the asteroid belt. But Lieutenant Commander Beth Martinez was waiting there with the U.S. Hunter. Her crew had painted human skulls on their ship's hull. The skulls had glowing red eyes that could be seen from far away. On the 4th day, the coalition ship ran out of fuel. It drifted in empty space, helpless and alone. The 3 human ships surrounded it like wolves around a wounded deer. Kevin opened a communication channel to the alien vessel. "This is Admiral Walsh of the Terran Navy," he said. "You are carrying medical supplies to Coalition Colony World, Zarian 7. "Yes," Klickthek replied. His voice was shaking. "These supplies are for civilian hospitals. Innocent people will die. Without them, like the innocent people on New Denver." Silence on the Coalition channel. "Here's what's going to happen," Kevin continued. "You're going to dump your cargo into space. Then you're going to return to your fleet and deliver a message. For us." "What message?" "Tell them that humans remember everything. Tell them we know who ordered the New Denver massacre. Tell them we know where the Coalition Council meets, where their families live, where their children go to school." Klickthek was quiet for a moment. "And if I refuse? Then you'll discover what happened to the crew of the merchant ship Golden Wing last month." Every Coalition captain knew that story. The Golden Wing had been found drifting near the Centauri system. Its crew was alive but completely insane. They kept screaming about humans in the shadows, humans who could walk through walls, humans who whispered their names in the dark. Coalition psychologists said the crew had been exposed to some kind of human psychological weapon, something that broke their minds without killing their bodies. "I'll dump the cargo," Klickthek said. Kevin watched the Coalition ship release its medical supplies into space. Thousands of alien lives would be lost without those medicines. In the old days, that would have bothered him. Now it felt like justice. "One more thing," Kevin said. "Tell your council that this is just the beginning. For 50 years, they taught us to be afraid. Now we're going to teach them." The Coalition ship limped away, leaving its cargo floating in the void. Kevin ordered his ships to destroy the medical supplies. It wasn't enough to stop them from reaching their destination. The aliens had to know that humans could take away anything they valued. Back on Coalition worlds, the stories spread. Human ships that appeared without warning. Human voices on communication channels, speaking perfect alien languages, knowing impossible details about their targets. Coalition crews who returned from patrol with empty eyes and broken minds. The Coalition military tried to adapt. They sent ships in larger groups. They improved their sensors. They created new protocols for dealing with human attacks, but humans adapted faster. Major Steve Collins led ground forces on Coalition mining world, Terminus 3. His soldiers moved through the alien settlement like ghosts, leaving messages written in Coalition blood. The messages were always the same: New Denver remembers. The miners abandoned the planet within a week. Commander Luke Thompson commanded a small fleet that specialized in convoy attacks. His ships would follow Coalition supply lines for weeks, learning their patterns, studying their habits. Then they would strike at the worst possible moment, when the aliens were tired and far from help. But the worst part wasn't the attacks themselves. It was what came after. Coalition survivors talked about humans who fought like demons. Humans who laughed when they were wounded. Humans who kept fighting even when their ships were destroyed. Using escape pods as weapons. They talked about human boarding parties that moved through alien ships like death itself. Soldiers who carved symbols into bulkheads, who left Coalition. Officers alive just long enough to watch their crews die. The aliens began to understand something terrible. Humans weren't just fighting a war. They were teaching a lesson. On Coalition command ships, admirals studied reports from across the galaxy. Every day brought new stories of human attacks. Supply convoys destroyed. Research stations abandoned. Entire planets evacuated because humans were seen in the area. But the humans weren't trying to conquer territory. They weren't trying to capture Coalition resources. They were doing something much worse. They were making the Coalition afraid. And for a civilization built on the idea that intelligent species didn't behave like predators, fear was more devastating than any weapon. The Coalition had spent 50 years trying to tame humanity. They had used laws and treaties and social pressure to make humans behave like civilized prey animals. Now they were learning what happened when predators stopped pretending to be sheep. The galaxy was about to discover that humans had been holding back for 50 years. Not because they were weak, but because they were kind. That kindness was gone now. In its place was something the Coalition had never seen before. Something that hunted for sport. 5 years after New Denver, General Patricia Kim stood on a hill overlooking Nexus Prime, the Coalition's capital world. Below her, the alien city burned in 7 different places. The Coalition's government buildings were dark, their power cut by human infiltrators weeks ago. "Ma'am, the outer defenses have collapsed," Major Sandra White reported through her radio. "Commander Thompson's forces are moving through the financial district now." Patricia nodded. The siege of Nexus Prime had taken 8 months. Not because humans couldn't break the defenses faster, but because they wanted the Coalition Council to suffer. They wanted the alien leaders to sit in their dark buildings, listening to human voices on every communication channel, knowing death was coming closer every day. "What's the status on the evacuation centers?" Patricia asked. "Full panic," Sandra replied. "The civilian population is trying to leave the planet, but our blockade ships are turning everyone back. Admiral Johnson's orders are clear. Nobody leaves until the Council surrenders." Patricia smiled. Chris Johnson was a smart man. He understood that the Coalition leaders didn't care about military losses, but they did care about their families. Every alien politician, every rich merchant, every important scientist on Nexus Prime was trapped with nowhere to run. Dr. Maria Lopez walked up the hill toward Patricia. Maria had become humanity's leading expert on alien psychology. She carried a tablet showing the latest intelligence reports. "General, we've received responses from 12 Coalition member species," Maria said. 7 of them are requesting separate peace talks. 4 others have already withdrawn their fleets from human space. "And the Zephyrians?" Maria's face went cold. "They're still fighting. Their Queen Mother issued a statement yesterday calling humans disease that must be cleansed from the galaxy." Patricia looked down at the burning city. "Good. I was hoping they would be stubborn." The Coalition had made many mistakes during their war with humanity, but their biggest mistake was thinking humans would fight like civilized species. They expected formal battles, negotiated surrenders, and prisoner exchanges. Instead, humans gave them something much worse. They gave them fear that never ended. Lieutenant Colonel Luke Thompson led his strike teams to the Coalition's government quarter. His soldiers moved like shadows, appearing in buildings that should have been impossible to enter. They left messages written on walls in alien languages. "Your children will pay for New Denver." The Coalition Council tried to meet in secret locations, but humans always found them. They tried to use bodyguards, but humans killed the guards and left the politicians alive to spread terror. They tried to negotiate, but humans only gave them one answer: too late. Commander Janet Adams commanded the human fleet positions around Nexus Prime. Her ships didn't look like normal military vessels. They looked like metal monsters with glowing red eyes painted on their hulls. The Coalition civilians could see them from the planet's surface, hanging in space like death waiting to fall. Admiral Johnson were receiving another surrender offer from the ethereal delegation. Janet reported over the fleet channel. "Terms?" Chris asked. "Complete withdrawal from human space. Recognition of human independence. War reparations for New Denver." Chris was quiet for a moment. The ethereals were peaceful bird-like creatures who had joined the Coalition for protection. They had never hurt humans directly. In the old days, humanity might have accepted their surrender. "Rejected," Chris said. "Tell them they should have thought about peace before they voted to approve the New Denver operation." That was the problem. The Coalition faced now. Humans remembered everything. Every vote, every decision, every species that had supported the massacre. Maria Lopez's research teams had spent years documenting exactly who was responsible for what. The Zephyrians had led the attack. The Crystalline Collective had provided the weapons. The Ethereals had voted to approve it. The Tentacled Ones had celebrated the results. All of them would pay. Major Pete Walker led ground forces to the Coalition's military headquarters. His soldiers had painted their faces with symbols that looked like human skulls. They moved through the building systematically, room by room, making sure every alien inside heard them coming. The Coalition officers tried to fight back, but their weapons were designed for civilized warfare. Humans used tools designed for killing. The aliens tried to coordinate their defense, but humans had been jamming their communications for weeks. Most importantly, the aliens fought to survive. Humans fought to win, Admiral Frank Davis commanded. The human forces surrounding the Coalition's home systems. His job was simple: make sure no alien ships could escape to warn other species about what was coming. Frank's crews included veterans like Captain Alice Martinez and Commander Bill Rogers. They had all lost friends at New Denver. They had all spent years following Coalition rules, pretending to be grateful for the chance to exist in alien space. Now they were showing the galaxy what humans looked like when the rules no longer applied. "Sir, we're detecting Coalition distress signals from the Kepler system," Alice reported. "Looks like a refugee convoy trying to reach neutral space. Intercept them," Frank ordered. "Make sure they understand that there is no neutral space anymore." The Coalition's member species were beginning to realize something terrible. The war wasn't about territory or resources. It wasn't about political control or trade rights. It was about evolution. For millions of years, prey animals had built civilizations based on cooperation and compromise. They had created laws and treaties and diplomatic solutions because they were too weak to survive through violence alone. But humans were different. Humans had evolved from hunters who chased their prey across continents. They had built their civilization on the idea that problems could be solved by killing them. The Coalition had tried to change that. They had spent 50 years teaching humans to behave like prey animals. They had used shame and social pressure and legal restrictions to make humans forget what they really were. New Denver had reminded them. Dr. Maria Lopez finished her report and handed it to General Patricia Kim. The document contained psychological profiles of every Coalition leader, detailed plans for breaking their morale, and recommendations for the final assault. "What do you think, Doctor?" Patricia asked. "How much longer before they break completely?" "The Council is already broken," Maria replied. "They're just too proud to admit it. But the individual species are starting to act on their own. The Ethereals will surrender within days. The Crystalline Collective is already evacuating their core worlds. And the Zephyrians?" Maria looked down at the burning city. "They'll fight to the end. Their psychology doesn't allow for surrender. They see this as a survival war between their species and ours." Patricia nodded. "Then we'll give them exactly what they want." The final assault on Nexus Prime began at dawn. Human forces moved through the city like a flood, overwhelming every defensive position. But they weren't trying to capture the city quickly. They were putting on a show. The Coalition Council sat in their underground bunker, watching their capital fall on security cameras. They could see human soldiers moving through their streets, human ships dropping from orbit, human flags being raised over their government buildings. But the worst part was the sound. Human voices singing old Earth songs as they fought. Human laughter when aliens tried to resist. Human cheers when another Coalition stronghold fell. The aliens finally understood what they had created. For 50 years, they had tried to tame a predator species. They had used every tool at their disposal to make humans behave like civilized prey. Instead, they had taught humans to hunt in packs. Commander Sandra White led the final assault on the Coalition Council chambers. Her soldiers moved through the underground tunnels like they had been born there. They knew every passage, every room, every hiding place. The council tried to fight back with their ceremonial guards, but humans had been preparing for this moment for 5 years. They knew exactly how coalition weapons worked, how coalition tactics functioned, how coalition psychology could be broken. When Sandra's team reached the main chamber, they found the coalition leaders huddled together like frightened animals. Which Patricia realized was exactly what they were, prey animals who had forgotten their place in the natural order. The war was over. But for humanity, the real work was just beginning. 10 years after New Denver, President Katie Johnson walked through the halls of what used to be the Coalition Council building. The alien symbols on the walls had been removed and replaced with human writing. The ceremonial chambers were 12. Species once debated galactic law now served as offices for human administrators. Outside her window, she could see the new Terran Empire flag flying over Nexus Prime. The flag was black with a red circle in the center. Inside the circle was a simple image, a human handprint. "Madam President, your cabinet is ready for the morning briefing," Secretary of Defense Paul Rogers said from the doorway. Katie nodded and followed him to the main conference room. Around the table sat the leaders of humanity's new galactic government. Admiral Julia Stone, who commanded the space forces that kept order in 12 star systems. General Mike Thompson, who governed the former Coalition colony worlds. Colonial Administrator Lisa Davis, who managed the alien populations that had submitted to human rule. "Status report," Katie said as she sat down. Paul opened his tablet. "The Zephyrian homeworld has been completely evacuated. The species is now extinct. The last Queen Mother died yesterday in our research facility on Luna." Katie felt no emotion about this news. The Zephyrians had chosen their fate when they burned the school on New Denver. They had wanted a war of extinction. Humans had simply won it. "What about the other species?" she asked. "The Ethereals have established a new colony in the Vega system under human supervision," Lisa reported. "They've accepted their status as a client species. Governor Wilson reports no major incidents." Admiral Julia looked at her notes. "The Crystalline Collective is providing mineral resources from their mining worlds. They understand that cooperation is their only option for survival." Katie nodded. This was how the new galaxy worked. Species that submitted to human authority were allowed to exist. Species that resisted were eliminated. It was simple, efficient, and fair. Admiral Jake Morrison entered the room. He was older now, with gray hair and lines around his eyes, but he still commanded respect from every human in the military. His ship, the U.S. Retribution, was the flagship of the Terran Space Navy. "Admiral Morrison," Katie said, "how are our patrol operations going?" "Excellent, Madam President," Jake replied as he sat down. "We've detected 3 attempts by refugee species to establish colonies beyond our borders. All 3 groups have been removed." Removed was the polite word humans used now. It meant that potential threats to human dominance had been eliminated before they could become problems. The galaxy had learned that humans were very good at detecting threats early. "Any signs of organized resistance?" Paul asked. Jake shook his head. "None. The surviving species are too scattered and too afraid to work together. They know what happened to the last group that tried to unite against us." Katie remembered that incident. 5 species had attempted to form a new alliance in a distant system. Human intelligence discovered their plans within weeks. The entire operation was destroyed before their first meeting could take place. Dr. Carl Rivers entered the room carrying a thick folder. He was the director of xenological studies now, responsible for managing all knowledge about alien species. His office maintained detailed files on every non-human population in the galaxy. "Doctor, what do you have for us today?" Katie asked. Carl opened his folder. "The annual assessment of galactic populations, Madam President. The numbers are quite interesting. He spread charts across the table. Human population has grown by 15% this year. We now control 47 colony worlds and have established research stations on over 200 planets. And the alien populations? Declining steadily, Carl replied. Natural deaths, emigration to unknown space, and occasional enforcement actions have reduced non-human populations by approximately 30% since the end of the war. Katie studied the charts. How long until we achieve optimal balance? At current rates, approximately 20 years, Carl said. By then, alien populations will be small enough to manage effectively, while large enough to provide necessary services. This was the plan humanity had developed after the war. Not genocide, exactly, but careful population management. Alien species would be preserved like historical artifacts, kept alive as long as they remembered their place in the new order. Admiral Julia looked at the reports. Are any species showing signs of population recovery? The tentacled ones are breeding faster than expected, Carl admitted. But they're also extremely cooperative. They seem to understand that their survival depends on human approval. Good. Katie said, what about our memorial projects? Lisa Davis opened her own folder. The new Denver Memorial Garden is complete. We've also finished memorial sites at locations where other coalition attacks occurred. Each site includes preserved recordings of the alien leaders who ordered those attacks. The memorials served two purposes. They honored human victims, but they also reminded alien populations what happened to species that opposed humanity. Visitors could press buttons and hear the voices of dead coalition leaders explaining why humans had to be controlled. Excellent work, Katie said. Now let's discuss this year's expansion plans. Mike Thompson spread a star map across the table. We've identified 12 systems suitable for new human colonies. All are currently uninhabited, though we detected traces of ancient alien settlements. Any living populations? Paul asked. None detected, Mike replied. But standard protocol requires full surveys before colonization begins. Standard protocol meant making absolutely certain that no alien species could claim ownership of the territory. Humans had learned to be thorough about such things. A young aide entered the room and whispered something to Admiral Jake. His face showed no expression as he listened. Madam President, Jake said when the aide finished, we've received a long-range transmission from beyond the galactic rim. It appears to be from a group of coalition refugees. What do they want? Katie asked. They're requesting permission to return. They claim they've learned their lesson and want to live peacefully under human authority. The room was quiet for a moment. Katie looked around the table at her advisors. These were the people who had fought the war, who had seen human children burned alive on New Denver, who had spent years hunting alien ships through empty space. Admiral Morrison, Katie said finally. What is your recommendation? Jake smiled. It was the same smile he had worn when he decided to leave his patrol sector 10 years ago. The smile of a predator who remembered what it was like to hunt. Send them a recording from New Denver, he said. Let them hear those children screaming. Then tell them that humans have very long memories. Katie nodded. Do it. The aide left to carry out the order. Soon, alien refugees hiding in distant space would receive their answer. They would understand that the galaxy had changed permanently. The age of alien civilization was over. The age of human dominance had begun. Later that day, Katie stood alone in her office, looking out at the city that had once been the capital of galactic civilization. Human children played in parks where alien diplomats used to walk. Human families lived in buildings where alien bureaucrats used to work. Emma Clark, her 8-year-old granddaughter, ran into the office and tugged on Katie's dress. Grandma Katie, why are all the aliens so scared of us? Emma asked. Katie picked up the little girl and held her close. Because they forgot something important, sweetheart. What did they forget? Katie looked out at the peaceful city, thinking about the schools and hospitals and homes that humans had built on the ruins of alien power. She thought about the species that had learned to serve humanity willingly and the species that had chosen extinction instead. They forgot that evolution doesn't create equals, Katie said softly. It creates predators and prey. For 50 years, we pretended to be prey because we wanted to be civilized, but civilized predators are still predators. Emma nodded seriously, though she probably didn't understand all the words. She would learn, though. All human children learned the story of New Denver and the lesson it taught about the price of kindness. Will the aliens ever be strong enough to fight us again? Emma asked. Katie smiled and hugged her granddaughter tighter. No, sweetheart, the hunting pack always wins in the end. Outside, the sun set over humanity's new galactic capital. In the distance, alien ships bearing human registration numbers carried cargo between human worlds. In the orbital stations above, alien workers served human masters with quiet efficiency. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Predators could pretend to be prey for a while, but eventually, nature always won, and humanity had always been very good at being natural.